Hello everybody, this is Dr. Gaines, kind of hanging out on a school bus as we kind of have crews cleaning buses this summer, but wanted to update you on a few things. The first is just kind of our budget and the state budget. Through the spring, we saw sales tax starting to decline, and that's a significant source of revenue for us. So we've seen some declines there. And when the casinos were closed and when tax day was moved from April 15th to July 15th, that's had a significant impact on us. So our transportation funding ended up being down about 13% in the year. Our basic formula funding, which is another major portion, was down about 5% as an impact or as a result of the impact of these things I mentioned. And unfortunately, we expect that some additional withholdings will be announced in early July. So we've had some budget challenges on the revenue side that have been a little bit out of our control, but we're still in a good position for now. As we think about the fall and returning to school, we've actually had a committee that's been meeting since late April working on what return to school could look like. And the first phase of that work is kind of now complete, and we're moving on to the next phase, which is really working with our principals on detailed operational plans about what things will look like in the buildings. And how do we minimize risk? One of the things we hear repeatedly from health officials is this notion of Swiss cheese analogy. And that, if you look at a single piece of Swiss cheese, it has a hole in it or more than one hole or partial holes. But as you layer pieces of Swiss cheese on top one another, you begin to create a good barrier. And so those are the things that we're considering when we talk about screening for employees and students before they arrive, when we talk about folks wearing face coverings, when we talk about hand hygiene and making sure we're washing our hands regularly, when we talk about cleaning classrooms and social distancing. All of those are just layers of pieces of cheese to create a better barrier for us and to minimize risk. So our plan is that we would have our ideas of what school's going to look like in the fall out to you the week of July the 20th. But to give you a kind of a preview of kind of what we're talking about, our scenarios are kind of in-person scenarios and the things that we're looking at. So, it'd be great if we were able to come with 5 days, everybody here, and really doing our best to do social distancing. We also are exploring staggered schedules because staggered schedules allow us to social distance better, because in a social distance or in a staggered schedule, one way is to look at it as half the kids in the morning, a second half of kids in the afternoon. Another way to look at it is kind of alternating days. So half the kids here one day, half the kids here next day, and we alternate that. Another way is by the week. Half of the kids here one week, half of the kids here the next week. So those staggered schedules are something that we're taking a look at. If we think about not in person, that's where we have to look at, are we going to be closed again? Maybe for a short term, maybe we have to close for a longer period. We don't know yet. We'll be taking those guidance from health officials and the county executive and the governor. But we do know that last spring it was kind of an emergency pivot and switch, but we've had a lot more time to plan for this coming school year. So anything that we have to do virtually or at home will be more robust than what we saw in the spring. Now, as this committee has been meeting and as my team has been meeting, we've tried to make some decisions along the way, and some of those decisions are things that we're not going to do. So I mentioned those staggered schedules. We're not going to do half the kids in the morning, half the kids in the afternoon, because we can't make that work from a transportation perspective, and we don't feel confident that we can clean the building significantly or sufficiently in kind of that middle of the day period. So we're not going to do that. But we do know that if we do a staggered schedule, we're going to keep families intact so that families are on the same schedule. We also know that this spring we had to send devices home with kids. That's going to continue to be the case. Kids will have devices assigned to them. They'll get to keep those and take those home. We also know that when we look at social distancing on school buses, that will cut down the capacity of one of these buses from, in the 70s to down into the low teens. That makes it hard to transport kids. And we're not going to be able to buy more buses because there aren't enough buses out there for districts to buy to be able to make social distancing work, much less being able to find drivers. So we're not going to be adding buses. We do know that we're going to develop and are getting really close to having kind of our own in-house virtual school. So that will be an option for parents. So that would be a semester by semester piece. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail shortly. But we do know that any guidance that we take is primarily going to come from county health. There are lots of organizations out there putting out information, but St. Louis County Health will be our primary driver. Now that virtual program I was talking about, it's going to be called Mehlville at Home. It'll be kindergarten through 12th grade. It'll be virtual. It'll be taught by Mehlville teachers who will either be teaching virtually full-time as their teaching assignment, or maybe a teacher, a high school or middle school teacher, teaches some classes in person and some classes virtually. But it's going to be a semester by semester commitment for families to be in that program kind of full time, if you will. So as we kind of look forward to the remainder of the summer, our next steps are to administer this survey to you guys. We need some feedback as we finalize some decisions. We're also going to have some informational sessions about Mehlville at Home and do some registration for Mehlville at Home. We're going to get our ideas and plan out to you of what school will look like in the fall out the week of July 20th. But we also know that ever since March, things have changed frequently. And even though we kind of have a plan on July 20th, things could change by the time we get to August 25th, and we'll have to react to that and may have to make some changes. And then we don't know what's going to happen throughout the school year, so we're just going to have to adjust as the landscape changes. So as of today, we don't know exactly what we're going to do yet, but we do know that we've got some great teachers, some great folks all across our staff, and we're going to be using high leverage instructional strategies to make sure that we deliver high quality content to the more than 10,000 students that we serve. We're going to do our best to minimize risk and keep our students and our employees safe.